Okay, well, while they are getting that figured out, we will get started. So for today, what I have planned is a supplement brief. And this is the same brief that I give to soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors about supplements. And there's a few good resources. Most of these resources are geared towards military. Are you in the military, Tiffany?
Yeah, I'm a sergeant.
Awesome. Okay. So this is stuff that will greatly benefit you and you'll be able to share with your soldiers then. So I'm sure you've probably heard of OPSS before, Operation Supplement Safety. Their website is OPSS. I always forget if it's com or gov. I believe it's .com. And there's a bunch of good information on there about supplements. You can also go to the Human Performance Resource Center is another one. I'll type it in the chat box if you're not familiar with that one. This gives you links to OPSS and a bunch of other just performance triad type stuff. So we're going to skip through their slides. So key messages with OPSS, you want to make sure that the supplements you're taking are safe. So we're going to talk about what supplements work well, when supplements don't work well, what do they do for you, what do they not do for you, and safety. So key message is that supplements are not regulated. They don't get investigated until something goes wrong. So there was then several instances where DoD personnel, usually young soldiers, are taking multiple ingredient supplements or multiple supplements at one time, and they end up with an adverse event or adverse reaction. And providers usually report these things if they know that an adverse reaction has occurred that may be related to supplements. And it's this reporting system. It doesn't need to be a provider. You could report an adverse event if you believe one has occurred to you or one of your soldiers. And that should be on the OPSS website, a link to that. And that's what cues an investigation. So if there's enough reports that name a certain supplement, then an investigation will ensue and they'll start looking into this product and the safety of it. Is it laced with anything? So what you have in front of you right now is a bunch of third-party certification or verification seals that say that they've been validated for quality. So if you see any of these seals on a product, it doesn't mean that the product works. It doesn't mean the product is safe. It doesn't mean that it's going to do what it says it's going to do. But it does mean that it's been tested to see if it's laced with anything. And what's on that bottle is the only thing that is in that bottle and nothing else. And we're just waiting for Chris to come into the chat. Hey, Chris, are you able to hear me okay? You're welcome to type in the chat or turn your mic on if you'd like. Okay, so before taking a supplement, we got one more in the waiting room. So before taking a supplement, you want to ask yourself these questions. Has it been third-party tested? Does it contain a proprietary blend? So proprietary blend means that this is a blend that that company has created on its own, and it may not list all the ingredients in that blend. This is a copyrighted blend, so it's their secret formula. What's nice about a proprietary blend is this can be studied in research because it is a specific formula, whereas what gets into, let's use C4 as an example, which is a really popular pre-workout supplement. The formulation of C4 may vary over time. And it's really hard to study these multi-ingredient supplements because we don't know how much of each ingredient is in that product. They don't tell us these things. Certain ingredients we know, or at least certain components, but for example, if you've taken chemistry, then you know things like calcium carbonate. There's things that are salts. So sodium chloride is a perfect example. So sodium chloride is just table salt, okay? So when sodium is reported on a nutrition label, we're only reporting the sodium component of that sodium chloride. We're not reporting the chloride component. So the same thing happens with supplements where they may report so much potassium, so much caffeine, so much of this, so much of that, but those may only be components of a certain ingredient. So we don't know necessarily how much of these other things are in there, which makes it really hard to study, really hard to understand for safety. We also may not know the type of that ingredient, so we may not know the bioavailability, meaning how readily it passes from your gut into your bloodstream and gets utilized by the body. To give you an example, to give you some context, there's two different kinds of calcium that are present in vitamins. So there's calcium carbonate and there's calcium citrate. And for you and I, with normal individual with a normal working GI tract, this is not a big deal. They both are pretty readily available. However, for someone who has had something like bariatric surgery, for whom this supplement may bypass the stomach and stomach acid, well, one of those will not be absorbed because it's not exposed to stomach acid. So there's things about digestion that will determine how available something is and how quickly it can be absorbed and how it can be used by the body. And we may not have that information. So back to the proprietary blend, the benefit of a proprietary blend is that if I search this in a database, it'll pull up studies on that specific blend. There may be other things in there besides the proprietary blend. The other side to this is it's likely industry-sponsored research. So it comes with it some inherent bias. There's something called publication bias. So if the industry is sponsoring this research, they're likely only publishing the research with good outcomes. They may not publish the research with bad outcomes, okay? So what's in it? Is it safe? Does it work? What do I expect it to do? And do I really need it? Are the next questions to ask yourself before taking a supplement. Now, when it comes to taking a supplement, if you're familiar with the performance triad, the bottom part of this pyramid is going to look very similar. So you have training or activity, diet or nutrition, fluid, and sleep. So the performance triad is nutrition, activity, and sleep. And these things are going to contribute so much more to your training outcomes, to your body composition, to your performance goals than a supplement is going to give you. So for most people, if these other things are not in place, the supplement is not going to overcome not doing these things. So if you're looking for some kind of boost in performance, some kind of boost in weight loss, some kind of boost in body composition, getting these 4 things in check first will give you so much more benefit and better bang for your buck as well. Just want to make a note on fluid. It has actually been proven that staying well hydrated benefits your metabolism. So your metabolism can slow down if you are chronically dehydrated. So it's not just about hunger cues and cravings. I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with that if you're dehydrated or if you're craving something or you think you're hungry, you may actually be thirsty. There's that, but there's also a metabolic component here. So there's actually some study out there, and I wish I had it saved so I could cite it for you, but it stated that being well hydrated gives you as much benefit as intermittent fasting may. So if you're someone who does not enjoy intermittent fasting, or at least the potential metabolic boost you may get from an acute fast, so we're not talking like fasting all the time, but an acute fast, staying well hydrated gives you that same benefit, and it's better for you, it's better for your performance, it's better for your mental acuity, it's just better for so many reasons. So I definitely gear people towards that first. All right, so here's the OPSS website. You can get a ton of free information there, whether military or civilian, you have access to this. NSF Sport is a great resource as well. So NSF is what collegiate and elite athletes look for safety. There's only certain supplements out there that are approved for pro and collegiate athletes to utilize. And if they do utilize them, then they look for NSF certified products. So it's a great app. It's free last time I checked, and you can get some good information. There is a barcode scanner on there, so you can scan your product and see what it has to say about it. It'll show you that product in relation to the goals that people tend to use it for, if it's effective, if it's safe, etc. Natural Medicine Database is another good one. If you are military, you do get free access to this with your .mil email address. So going to opss.org, excuse me, I think I said earlier it was .com, you can get a free account through this. Otherwise, generally, you have to pay. I do know the professional version of it is paid. The consumer version, I imagine, is paid. It may be free. It is definitely less expensive than the professional version. So if you're not military, I would definitely check this out and see if you have access to it if you're curious. But military, you do have free access to this. Definitely check with your healthcare provider if you're on supplements and medications, because there are certain interactions that can occur, and many interactions that we don't know about because these are not widely tested. All right, so next up, this is the HPRC website that I put in the chat. And this is civilian and military have access to this, but this is a Uniformed Services University website. NATIC out of Massachusetts puts a lot of their information up here. So there's, excuse me, tons of amazing information. There is a warfighter nutrition guide available on here. If you go to the nutrition tab, you can find it in that area. If you have any trouble finding it, let me know. I'd be happy to send it to you. I have it on digits. And this warrior nutrition guide, there's a couple different things that you can get access to with this. There's microwave, so dorm friendly or barracks friendly meals. So in the barracks, there's typically, like many dorms, so college students as well, or people who just don't have good cooking skills. A lot of microwave friendly meals or meals that can be made with minimal equipment. There's also a performance triad challenge book. So this is really meant for leaders, but there's actually two versions. There's a leader version with a bunch of activities and guides that you can use with your soldiers. And there's also a soldier version for a soldier to pick up and use on their own. Again, civilians, you actually have free access to this. You don't need a CAC card to get access or government computer. This is all public information. If you go to the OPSS website, it's going to show you this classification system when you are looking at supplements. So on the left-hand side, you have potential benefit. On the right-hand side, you have risk. So I just want to point out with benefit, one of the issues I take with the media is they report benefit as just this overarching umbrella of it's good for you or it's not. And when you're thinking about benefit, know what your goals are, okay? So I put in one of the videos a diagram of health, performance, and weight loss. And there is sometimes some intersect between those things, but not always. In fact, I'd say there's less intersect than there is lack of intersect. So training for performance may not be the same thing as improving your body composition. In fact, athletes, when they need to improve their body composition, they do it in the off season. They do not try to lose weight or change their muscle mass during the training season. Ultimately, muscle mass does change during the training season just as a function of training, but they are not dieting specifically to lose or gain any specific composition. Okay, and that's because that is detrimental to performance. Okay, so know what it is you're trying to do. Are you trying to change body composition? Are you trying to get faster? Are you trying to get bigger muscles? Are you trying to get increase your endurance or increase your endurance speed versus increase your 100-meter speed? Are you trying to ruck further or faster? So these are different types of fitness, and that supplement may or may not benefit you in that specific area. And we're going to talk about this more specifically when we get into specific supplements. And then you have your risk and safety concerns on the right-hand side. So here's some of the, just a quick overview of some of the supplements. So green zone, you see melatonin, multivitamins and minerals, tyrosine, vitamin B complex, and sports drinks and sports gels. Of course, even though these are in the green zone, they have appropriate and inappropriate uses, okay? And generally speaking, excessive consumption of any of these, so even things in the green zone, you can overdo it if you're doing too many of these things. And you'll see what I mean is in a few slides here when we talk about multivitamins and megadose vitamins. Amber zone, antioxidants are in the amber zone. Reason being, taking excessive antioxidants can actually hurt your performance. So it may or may not be good for long-term health, depending on the antioxidant and what it is that you're at high risk for. So I think in a previous video, I spoke about vitamin A and smokers and lung cancer. And vitamin A actually increases the likelihood of dying from lung cancer in smokers. So it's worth doing some research to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for some kind of failure. Okay. Things with the asterisk next to it specifically pay attention to excessive consumption. Caffeine is an example, and so are energy drinks. And things with two asterisks next to it, there's insufficient evidence to support a recommendation for use. So energy shots are an example of that. Okay. If you guys have questions, just throw them in the chat, and I'll stop and we can address them. Or I think there's a raise your hand function, or just pop on and interrupt me. That's totally fine. All right, so moving on to the specific supplements. So we have whey protein powder is the first one. This is the most common supplement used, and it is often used to improve body composition or athletic performance. So this is what it's used for. This is, you'll hear me frequently refer to what it's used for, and then we'll go into the evidence for it. So people may use it for something that it actually does not have a lot of evidence for, okay? So evidence actually does support the use of whey protein in combination with caloric restriction for weight loss in overweight and obese individuals. And this goes hand in hand with high protein diets as a recommendation for weight loss in overweight and obese individuals. If you want to take that one step further, excuse me, one thing that may have to do with is what we call sarcopenia, which is a loss of muscle mass, which can translate to a lower metabolism. So what we frequently see in overweight and obese individuals is because of a lack of activity, they don't have a lot of muscle mass. And our muscle is really the only control we have over our metabolism. So think about, a bodybuilder versus you take a bodybuilder who maybe is 250 pounds versus someone who's considered overweight obese, who's also 250 pounds. The bodybuilder is going to have a higher metabolism. They burn more calories at rest because of their muscle mass, even though everything else may be the same, height, gender, weight, those things may all be the same, but their metabolism is going to be faster, okay? So here's some studies that show some evidence. So 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kilogram of whey protein powder. And this is not saying 1.2 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of protein. That's referring specifically to the powder. Okay, so when you're reading studies, make sure you're looking for that distinction. So over 6 to 10 weeks, combined with strength training, or 30 to 33 grams of whey protein with strength training for 9 to 21 weeks can increase lean body mass, it can increase strength, and it can increase muscle hypertrophy. Okay, so increase muscle size in healthy young adults. So what this is not increasing is endurance or running speed. So if you look at that third bullet down, it may improve running speed when combined with carbohydrates. That's very important. So whey protein powder alone does not improve running speed. So reasons behind this: running speed has something to do with explosive energy. Okay, so weightlifting also is a form of explosive energy, that's strength. So speed over short distances is more of a function of strength. There's absolutely some cardiovascular fitness to that as well. But you think about sprinters versus endurance athletes, sprinters do tend to have a lot more muscle mass. But the carbohydrates is what that cardiovascular system is using. So very important distinction there. May improve recovery in untrained athletes, but not in trained athletes compared to a carbohydrate or non-caloric drink. This is a theme you're going to see frequently, is a lot of these supplements show some kind of benefit in untrained athletes, but in trained athletes, they don't show much benefit. So if you think back to that pyramid that we looked at the very beginning of the PowerPoint, it falls right in line with that concept that if you're trained, then that's the benefit. You're getting way more benefit from your training than you ever will from a supplement, okay? So second slide, I won't read these word for word to you, but I just want to point out the leucine component here. Okay, so leucine we're finding, which is a type of amino acid, which you guys aren't to the protein section yet in your coursework, but amino acids make up proteins. So meat is considered a complete protein because it contains all 9 essential amino acids, whereas something like beans are an incomplete protein because they lack some of the essential amino acids. Essential meaning your body can't make them. You have to get them from your diet. Okay, so leucine, we are learning, is very important when it comes to building muscle. There's a difference between casein and whey. So casein can help with, so what this says is intake of 30 to 40 grams of casein stimulates muscle protein synthesis, which this is how much protein is created in your muscle. So when it comes to muscle protein synthesis, just because you have a high rate of this does not necessarily translate to muscle building, because you also have muscle protein breakdown. So if your breakdown is higher than your building, then you have muscle loss. If your building is higher than your breakdown, then you will have muscle gain. If they're equal, then nothing will change. So we only have half the equation here. We know that it can increase synthesis, but we can't really tell what's going on with that person for breakdown. For example, if you're eating too few calories for your diet, well, you're likely breaking down more than you're able to build. So this may slow it down, but it's not going to stop it, okay? And what's important is it does not influence lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fat. So you can increase muscle, but in that same moment, it's not going to change your fat burning, okay? So those are two separate things there. And we talked about endurance athletes and a need to include carbohydrates to help with optimal performance. Carbohydrates and protein together help offset muscle damage and promote recovery in endurance athletes. All right, any questions about that? It's a lot of info about whey protein. Okay, moving on. So when you're looking at supplements, it's important to read the label. So it'll give you, like I said, some information. So if you look at this red circle here, it gives you a big list of this blend that they have, and it gives you the overall amount per serving of that blend, but we don't know how much of these things are in there. So things that are in red, these are caffeine, or things that will contribute to caffeine or some kind of stimulants. We don't know how much of each of these are in there, so I can't tell you how much caffeine is in this product because it's reported as a blend. And I don't know what proportion of the blend caffeine makes up. So stimulants are, you want to be careful with stimulants because we have seen some adverse effects from taking too many stimulants, and we see far more problems, like I said earlier, we see far more problems when we're taking supplements with multiple ingredients or taking multiple supplements, because we just don't know how these things interact with each other. Next up is HMB, or hydroxymethylbutyrate. So we see people using this for a benefit with weight training and exercise. The evidence says that it is probably safe when used in the short term for up to 8 weeks or less. So you can see the dosing there. There is insufficient evidence to say that it improves any form of athletic improvement. So it may be safe in the short term, but we don't know that it improves performance. It may increase strength and body composition and reduce muscle damage when used during resistance training or intense endurance exercise. May be most effective in untrained individuals versus trained individuals, that unfortunate theme that we see with these supplements. Now BCAAs, if you're and I say this term with warmth, a gym bro, okay? I don't mean that to be negative. Or if you've been around supplements at all or the fitness industry, then you've probably heard of BCAAs. So these stand for branched chain amino acids. They're very special types of amino acids, those building blocks of protein. And there are 4 of them. One of them is not listed up there. The essential ones, so leucine, isoleucine, and valine are considered essential amino acids, and they are BCAAs. What's special about BCAAs is your body can convert these to carbohydrate can convert them down to carbohydrates when they're low in carbohydrates. So this becomes important for endurance athletes, that if you are not consuming adequate carbohydrates for endurance sport, then your body may look for these BCAAs within your body and start breaking them down. And that's why we see muscle breakdown in endurance athletes. And that's why this is frequently seen with endurance athletes, that we have them taking these as part of gels during marathons, ultras, Ironmans, those kinds of things. You can find BCAAs in food. Okay, so let's look at the dosing first. So the very last bullet there says there are no specific dosing recommendations for athletes. However, 2 grams seems to be used in the literature often when it's being studied. Now look back up to that second bullet and see how much grams you can get in just 3 ounces of chicken. So 3 ounces of chicken is a deck of cards, similar size. If you think about the height, width, and thickness of a deck of cards, think about that amount of chicken, beef, fish, and you're already getting 4.6 grams of these BCAAs. So these are very, very easy to get in your diet, and there's contradictory evidence out there. So when it comes to improving athletic performance, we don't really have evidence to say that it does. We can say that it might help reduce muscle breakdown. Very important distinction in the research is what we see in the lab, especially with athletics, does not always translate well to the real world. So even though we may see reduced muscle breakdown during exercise, we're not really seeing that translate to improved performance. Now let's do a bit of a reality check here though. In research, when it comes to studying supplements or anything in the sports field, it's usually elite athletes or college athletes that are studied. Okay, and it's very hard to define what is a recreational athlete versus an elite athlete. Where does that crossover occur? And even amongst recreational athletes, there's a wide range of what kind of mileage people are pushing, what kind of performance they can achieve amongst recreational athletes. So, so when it comes to the literature, there's a lot that we don't know in what they're reporting. What's the rest of their diet look like? How long have they been training? Do they get enough sleep? Are they well hydrated? There's a lot of information that is just kind of unknown when it comes to these athletes. The other thing is we work with statistical significance. So, in the lab, a time difference of 5 seconds may not be statistically significant, but in the real world, 5 seconds means you win or lose the race. So that's an important distinction when it comes to sports nutrition and research, is we interpret it a little bit differently than we would medical research because we're looking for something different. Our goals are different. All right, L-arginine. So L-arginine is an amino acid found in red meat, poultry, fish, and dairy foods. And you can see in those next few bullets just how much you can find in specific foods. It is safe up to 20 grams per day in healthy adults, and I'm going to specify that this is from supplements because getting these things from food is not the same thing as getting them from supplements. Earlier, we addressed bioavailability. And when you're taking it in a supplement form, often it is far more bioavailable than if you're eating it. So it's designed specifically to be absorbed. So you're going to get more from it from a supplement than you would if you're eating it. You're also only going to get that. If you're eating food, you're getting a wide variety of things from that food. And they, certain things compete with each other for absorption. Certain things help each other get absorbed. So vitamin D and calcium. Vitamin D helps calcium get absorbed. Iron and calcium, however, compete. So if you're taking iron and calcium together in a supplement form, you're probably not absorbing much out of that, okay? Unless they're specifically designed to be bioavailable with both of them present. But most people just separate those two things. Primary benefits are related to tasks requiring peak power and improvement to VO2 max. So this is your peak oxygen volume intake of your lungs. Okay, so this has to do with cardiac fitness up into the anaerobic zone and muscular endurance. So there are mixed results in literature, but we do see potential for GI distress or gastrointestinal distress. So that could be nausea, vomiting, upset stomach, diarrhea. cramps. It could be any of those. There are adverse events related to L-arginine associated with multiple ingredient nitric oxide products. So some symptoms include headache, palpitations, and elevated blood pressure. I do want to make a point about nitric oxide. I don't believe I have a slide on this, but I did an entire video on it. Let me just see real quick if I have a slide. If I do, we'll wait. Okay, no. All right, so you can probably read my notes in the bottom here. It says, it's thought to be an ergogenic aid through 3 mechanisms. So ergogenic aid just meaning thought to improve performance. So L-arginine plus oxygen turns into what's called citrulline and nitric oxide. So main point I want to make here is if you're taking a nitric oxide supplement, it's probably not directly nitric oxide that you're taking, because that, I believe, is a controlled substance that requires a prescription. What you're probably taking is a large amount of L-arginine. And the theory is, well, we're going to kick a ton of L-arginine into your system and it'll convert to nitric oxide. And the fact of the matter is that it just does not convert at that high of a rate. So to take such large amounts of L-arginine actually is not really benefiting you. What is better is to get, there's a better nitric oxide precursor, and I will make a note to myself to share the video where I go into way more detail than I can remember off the top of my head at this moment. But what's better is to eat leafy green vegetables, believe it or not, because you get a precursor to nitric oxide that converts far more readily. It goes through a different pathway, and it's far more potent to becoming nitric oxide and leading to this vasodilation. So I will share that video to the classroom so that if you're interested, you can take a look. Let's see here, what do we miss? Okay, on to glutamine. So glutamine as an amino acid is considered conditionally essential during times of high stress. So glutamine is something that we actually give patients in the hospital. So post-surgery, if they're extremely ill, especially ICU patients, we might give them glutamine supplements in the hospital. So there's evidence on that side of the house. Now, being in the hospital and being ill is a very different kind of stress than the stress of exercise and trying to improve performance and recovery. There's some overlap, there's some benefit, but just remember that exercise does cause inflammation. Illness also causes inflammation. But illness causes inflammation that makes you more ill. Exercise causes inflammation that tends to be beneficial and wards off illness. So it is a very different pathway. So just because we have evidence in one area and it sounds like they overlap, there is some, but not entirely. There's differences that are very important. Currently, there's insufficient evidence to deem glutamine beneficial for athletic performance. We do not have evidence to say that it repairs muscle or helps with muscle gain, nor do we have evidence to show that it improves immune function after physical stress. Okay, as much as 14 grams per day in supplement form has been deemed safe, but you can also find glutamine in foods. So if you look below there, you can find it in cabbage, beets, fish, beans, and dairy products. So you can get it from other sources. Creatine, this is a very, very common one. So creatine is found in your muscles. That's why you can find it in meat, poultry, and fish. We have it in our muscles. So the reason we take creatine is you have 3 systems that give you energy when you're exercising or even at rest. So you have your aerobic system. So your aerobic system is slower, but it gives you more energy for each molecule that it breaks down. The reason being is it breaks down carbohydrates and lipids, so fats. And fats have a lot of energy per gram. So per molecule, there's far more energy than a gram of protein or a gram of carbohydrate. Carbohydrates in the aerobic system get broken down all the way, so you're extracting all the energy from that carbohydrate when you're using your aerobic system, but it moves much slower. So this is why when you're running at low paces, you're using primarily your aerobic system. All systems are running at all times. It's just a matter of what proportion of which systems you're using, okay? So for example, sitting at rest right now, we're using predominantly our aerobic system. But if I go to open my drawer, I'm probably using the creatine phosphagen system, okay? We'll get to that in 1 second. So that's the aerobic system, carbs, fats. You guys don't need to know this for any test, but it helps explain why creatine works. Anaerobic system uses only carbohydrates. Okay, so this is what you're using when you sprint, or if you're running a 5K, you're going to be using more your anaerobic system. If you're really pushing that race anyways, then you're going to be using more your anaerobic system. Again, all three are running at all times, but it's about the proportion of which you're using, okay? And then your third is your creatine phosphagen system. So this is for very rapid movements. It's also the one that kicks in first. So let's say I start running, I will use my creatine phosphagen system first. And then my anaerobic system will kick in and carry the weight until my aerobic system can kick in and pick up the rest of the slack. Okay, so again, they're all running at any given time. The exercise that uses the creatine phosphagen system the most is things like weightlifting and sprinting. So power movements, very fast, short movements. Okay, so the creatine phosphagen system, I don't want to go into a full explanation of what ATP is, but ATP is a universal currency for energy in your body. Carbs, protein, fats, your sources of energy in your diet, all that energy gets converted to ATP. That's what that aerobic, anaerobic, and creatine phosphagen systems, they convert that energy into ATP so that your cells can use it. That's the form of energy your cells use. So ATP is adenosine triphosphate. 3 phosphates, okay? Triphosphate. That's the most important thing I want you to take from this. When you use a molecule of ATP for exercise, for energy, it releases a phosphate, and that is where the energy comes from. To reload that, we need to add a phosphate back so that it can be used again for more energy. So the creatine phosphagen system, the name is probably already giving you a hint there, is creatine with a phosphate molecule. So the theory behind this creatine supplement is if we load your muscles with creatine, then you'll have more creatine paired with phosphate to reload that ATP when you need it. So you just have more opportunities to kick that energy back out. So creatine is meant to help you knock out that last rep, okay? Maybe hold that pace for the last 5 meters of your 100-meter sprint, okay? So there isn't a lot of evidence that it improves endurance or aerobic performance, which you'll see in the third from the last bullet. Fourth from the last bullet states what I just said. It enhances short-term bouts of high-intensity training and can increase muscle mass. Sometimes this is due to increased water in the muscle because of the increased presence of that creatine, okay? It can cause weight gain. This can be due to the water, or it can be due to muscle mass. So typically weight gain is one of the goals people have when they take this. They're looking for an increase in muscle mass. Generally speaking, it should increase muscle mass if you're using it in combination with appropriate training. Taking this alone without appropriate training probably just increase water weight. But with appropriate training, you can increase muscle mass, okay? So you generally want to take a loading dose, and I don't see this written on many supplements. So I think most people tend to take it inappropriately. So you actually want to take a loading dose of 20 grams of creatine for up to 1 week. And you want to split this up because if you take all 20 grams at one time, I promise you're going to upset your stomach. And then after that, you want to follow it by a maintenance dose of 3 to 5 grams per day. Most data shows 2 to 3 grams per day is a safe range. So if you're a little weary, you've never used it before, or maybe you're experiencing symptoms, then stay in the 2 to 3 gram day, okay? There are responders and non-responders. Some people respond to creatine and some people don't. Some theories behind this is vegans, vegetarians, stand to gain more from taking creatine than meat eaters, simply because they're not getting it in their diet. So it doesn't mean that you should go vegan or vegetarian if you're a meat eater currently. To get more benefit out of creatine, you're going to be getting the same benefit from your diet if you're eating appropriately. Okay, if you're getting enough creatine in your diet, then adding a supplement is not going to do you any extra good. Okay. Any questions on creatine? can zoom into this so you can see this. And I will post these slides for you guys if you want to grab any of these infographics off of here. These are all free on the HPRC website or the OPSS website. So I got all of these, okay? All right, so moving on. Coenzyme Q10. Oop, sorry, guys. Okay, coenzyme Q10 is present in plants, bacteria, fungi, animal tissues. It does play a role in muscle and immune system, excuse me, and it acts as a free radical scavenger, so it's an antioxidant. It has not been shown to improve aerobic power in athletes, so more research is needed for other facets of athletic performance. We just really don't know when it comes to performance. It may have some GI side effects. It is believed to strengthen antioxidant defense during exercise training and increase exercise tolerance. This is one of those things that I would be careful with it if your main goal is performance, because like I said, exercise is, it does create an inflammatory process in your body. And the free radicals created by exercise actually drive the adaptations in your body. So in collegiate athletes, if an athlete has an injury or is sick, they're very careful about how much vitamin C supplementation they give them. So they don't restrict their intake of fruits, which are high in vitamin C, but they are going to be careful about how much supplement they give them with vitamin C. Reason being, that antioxidant has actually been shown to decrease fitness. So if you're out of the game, you're not able to exercise, you're taking high doses of vitamin C, it's been shown that you'll return to, in sports it's called return to play, in the military it's called return to duty. I'm going to use return to duty. When you return to duty, your fitness level is going to be lower than if you had not taken that high dosage of antioxidants. It will actually interfere with that system those adaptations that your training caused, okay? So again, just be careful with these things. Like sometimes we have intended benefits from them, but they actually push us in the other direction. All right, caffeine. This is probably my favorite supplement because it is well studied. The military loves it. We use it for fun things. And I love coffee. So caffeine is present in coffee, tea, cola, energy drinks, chocolate, energy bars, and over-the-counter medicines. Some other sources that you may see as ingredients in supplements or energy drinks or even some foods now is guarana, cola nut, yerba mate, green tea, black tea, cacao pods, etc. There is a whole slew of things that contribute to caffeine, so that is not an exhaustive list. 8-ounce cup of coffee is about 100 milligrams, but depending on the coffee, the more roasted the coffee, the less caffeine, generally speaking, but they can add caffeine to beans. The less roasted, so your blonde roasts or green coffee, actually have more caffeine, believe it or not. Heat destroys caffeine. It peaks in 1 hour, so you can use this to your advantage. If you are tired, or there's even specific recommendations for military operations for how to appropriately utilize caffeine for 24-hour ops, night ops, if you're on a night shift or you're changing shifts, etc. They're out there. I would check out the HPRC website if you're interested in that information. So you never want to go above 200 milligrams. 200 milligrams has been shown, like that is the cutoff. You're not getting any added benefit beyond 200 milligrams. So if you're taking a pre-workout and it's tooting 600 milligrams a time, you're wasting your money taking that extra. Just cap it at 200. There may very well be a placebo effect where you feel like you're getting more. I have a theory that the majority of the benefit is actually from the hydration you're getting. If you're drinking that supplement, we all tend to be chronically dehydrated. So I think for a lot of people, that extra fluid before a workout is actually doing them way more good than the supplement themselves. 2 to 6 milligrams per kilogram body weight has been shown to enhance performance. 10 grams is estimated to be a lethal dose. Please don't test that. Daily consumption of 400 milligrams is deemed safe. However, in the military, we bump that up to 800. And that's because if you take 200 milligrams every 6 hours, which it takes 6 hours for it to leave your system, please don't consume caffeine within 6 hours prior to bedtime. That is why the military says 800, is because if we need you to do 24-hour ops, we're going to recommend you take 200 milligrams every 6 hours so it stays in your system and helps you stay alert. If we went with the civilian recommendation of 400 milligrams, well, then we could utilize that for 24-hour ops. All right, chromium. So chromium plays a role in the action of insulin. Insulin, if you're not familiar with this hormone, insulin acts like a key to your cells to allow carbohydrates in so that they can access that aerobic, anaerobic metabolism that we spoke of earlier. Okay, that process takes place inside your cells, and in order to get into your cells, the carbohydrates in your blood need insulin to communicate with the cell and let it in. Okay, not likely to aid in weight loss or body composition. The recommended daily allowance is 25 micrograms per day in women and 35 micrograms per day in men. You guys are going to get exposed to what the RDAs and AIs are in a future lesson. So if you don't know what that is right now, don't worry about it. We'll get there. Typical dosages used in trials are between 200 and 1,000 micrograms per day. So right now the benefit potential is pretty low with this one, but the risk is also low. Beta-alanine, another amino acid. So this is a non-essential amino acid. It plays a role in muscle contraction, and it does tend to be low in vegetarians. So again, vegetarians may benefit from supplementing with this, at least if they're athletes. Otherwise, you're likely getting plenty of it in your diet. It is considered to be safe when used in supplement form for 6 to 8 weeks at a dosage of 3 to 7 grams per day, with a 6 to 8 week washout, meaning that you've stopped taking it for 6 to 8 weeks and then you're going to start taking it again. So the benefits, it shows a moderate benefit potential, specifically with high intensity training and strength training. So possibly endurance. The argument here is when you're able to improve your anaerobic fitness, that tends to translate to improvements in endurance fitness. So I'm an Ironman coach on the side as well, and you know, an Ironman could take upwards of 14 hours. We don't have athletes training for 14 hours at any point in the training program. In fact, the longest workout is 6 hours. And the way we get that person to the finish line is, one, something called cumulative fatigue, but two, high intensity. So during the week, these athletes are doing intense workouts, and on the weekends, they're doing their endurance workouts. But they're doing them at an intensity that may be higher than what they're planning on doing on race day. And that tends to get them to race day. Okay, it just tends to translate to that endurance fitness. You may experience a pins and needles sensation when taking this. In fact, this is often put in pre-workouts to cause that pin and needle sensation because people feel like it's working when they feel that. And it's not the pre-workout, it's just this beta-alanine. Okay. 25% experience mild side effects at a less than 10 milligram per kilogram dosage. Let's see if there's anything in these notes here that I want to share with you as well. You can experience flushing of the skin. I think that is it. Any questions on this one? All right, moving on to melatonin. And we're pretty close to the end. So melatonin, the way melatonin works is this is tied to light. So as the sun goes down and less light hits your retina, this receptor in your eye recognizes the dimming light, it starts to release melatonin. And melatonin starts to build up in your bloodstream, and then it crosses the blood-brain barrier and makes you sleepy. Okay, it is found in fruits and seeds. I have a whole presentation on this. If y'all are interested, let me know after class, and I'd be happy to do that one as a live chat as well. It is useful in a sleep aid when sleep-wake cycles are interrupted. So shift workers, traveling across time zones, for example. There's your typical dosages. It does peak 3 to 4 hours following ingestion. However, drowsiness may be experienced sooner. So main take-home message here is if you're going to take it, please take it after you've driven home. So make sure you are at home when you take it. It is not authorized for use by aviation personnel for any of my military folk out there. And there are several medication interactions. Interestingly, BCAAs interact with melatonin. So specifically tryptophan as well. So there are products out there. In fact, I have a recovery whey protein product that I use. It is meant specifically to be taken at bedtime. It's high in casein. So we talked about that with the whey protein slide. It's high in casein and it's high in tryptophan. Tryptophan converts to melatonin. So the intention of this supplement is that it is a protein supplement that is taken about 1 to 3 hours prior to bedtime and is intended to help with recovery, and it is intended to help you sleep as well. BCAAs will actually interfere with crossing the blood-brain barrier. So BCAAs actually contribute to alertness. So I don't recommend people take BCAAs as a recovery drink if you're exercising in the evening. BCAAs take about 3 hours, 1 to 3 hours to peak in your bloodstream, so you can take them prior to a workout and still have them benefit you as a recovery drink, okay? And in fact, you'll end up utilizing some of those during your workout if they do reach your bloodstream during that workout. You'll use the supplement rather than the BCAAs from your muscle. If you're taking it after your workout, well, then you're only using the BCAAs from your muscle, and then you're replacing it. Well, I'd rather we not take it from your muscle to begin with. So it's perfectly okay to take it prior to your workout rather than after. I would much prefer that. You get way more benefit out of it, and it's not going to interrupt your sleep. All right, multivitamins and minerals, and then megavitamins and minerals. So a multivitamin, the important difference between a multivitamin and a megavitamin is the multivitamin is a dosage up to the upper limit, and you'll learn about upper limits in a future chapter. This is the daily intake that is considered to be safe over consistent periods of time, okay? So you don't really ever want to go over the upper limit without speaking to a professional, okay? Unless you have some pretty good evidence that it's safe. And utilize those websites we talked about earlier to make sure it's safe. Megavitamin means you're going over that upper limit. So here's some examples of upper limits. The most important one is vitamin A, okay? So take a look at vitamin A, 10,000 IUs per day. And I like to have people do this little exercise. We're going to skip ahead here. Just look at the vitamin A from these products. So the first is a multivitamin from GNC. This is the Megamens multivitamin, 3,500 IUs. The second is a Maltomeal fortified cereal. So vitamin A is 15% prepared. And I did the math here. I'm sorry, I did not include the math on here, but I have the outcome. And then the vitamin water. Vitamin A is 5,000 IUs in the vitamin water. So I ran the math on the Maltomeal and what that actually calculated to in IUs, and it ends up coming to, I think that one was 450 IUs if I'm looking at my notes correctly. But across the day, if you're consuming a serving of each of these things, it ends up being 10,000 IUs. A lot of our foods are fortified or enriched, meaning vitamins and minerals have been added to them. So a lot of our foods end up being like a multivitamin. Is all of it absorbed? Maybe not, but it's very hard to say how much is absorbed and how much is not. So with some of these things, it's just not worth taking a risk. This is one reason I don't tend to recommend multivitamins to most people, is because yes, you can overdo it. There's research from a few years ago that said that men specifically who consume way too much folic acid, and I wish I could quote the actual amount to you, but there was research that men who really overdid on folic acid, specifically from supplements, set themselves up for a higher risk of prostate cancer. So you don't want to overdo these things. When it comes to antioxidants in your body has a pool. You know, your body can only hold on to so much nutrition at one time, right? Like, we can't just infinitely store these things and make them readily available. So, and it can only process so much at one time too. So something is going to get sent out in your urine as waste. And we hope it's the things that you don't need, right? So when it comes to antioxidants, your body can only keep a pool around to draw from. If you're taking a singular antioxidant supplement, well, now your pool is predominantly that singular antioxidant item. Antioxidants all do something different. So they don't, they're not always interchangeable in what it is they do in your body. You want your body to have a good variety to pull from so that it has what it needs when it needs it. So that's why I tend to not recommend taking antioxidant supplements unless you have a very specific reason for it and there's evidence to support it. Rather, eat your fruits and vegetables. It's not sexy, it's not exciting, but it is still the best thing for your body. All right, taurine. We have two more slides. The last is just my contact info. So taurine is a conditionally essential amino acid. It's found in meat and fish. It's been used safely in studies lasting up to 1 year. There's not enough evidence regarding exercise performance and whether or not it improves it. In combination with caffeine, it may reduce fatigue. Clinical research suggests that 2 grams of taurine in combination with BCAAs 3 times a day for 2 weeks reduced muscle soreness in non-exercisers. So people who just started an exercise program who previously were not exercising at all. It can be dehydrating, and it can also have a hypotensive effect, meaning hypotensive meaning low blood pressure, so feelings of wooziness. Combining with multiple ingredients may exacerbate this effect. So combining with coenzyme Q10, fish oil, L-arginine, and others can exacerbate that effect. Also know, I didn't include fish oil on here, but fish oil is now allowed by collegiate athletes to utilize for recovery and reducing soreness and inflammation and improving immunity. Fish oil can have a blood thinning effect. So if you're on any kind of blood thinners, make sure you let your doctor know before you start taking this. All right. And I already told you all about what's written in this slide, so I'll give you a chance to kind of look it over. This is just a comparison of what the RDA for some of these common antioxidants, so vitamin C, vitamin E, and zinc are all considered antioxidants. So I have the RDA for men, the RDA for women, and then the upper limit. And then at what point does that antioxidant possibly create a detriment to exercise adaptation? So you can see that for vitamin C, it's below the upper limit. So if you think about those vitamin C supplements that people take when they're ill, likely possibly above this. You'd have to check the supplement. Vitamin E, still below the upper limit. So there's potential for reaching that. Zinc, we don't have enough evidence to say where it may have a detriment to exercise adaptation. But zinc may cause a copper deficiency. It can also cause flu-like symptoms, nausea, vomiting, fatigue, neuropathy, which neuropathy is it has to do with your nerves, so odd feelings, maybe tingling in your extremities, your fingers, your hands, toes, metallic taste, kidney and stomach damage, and other side effects for taking above the upper limit. All right, so that is all I have on supplements for you guys. We've been on for about an hour, so I will open it up to any questions you may have about this or any of the classwork. Just hop on with your mic or chat, jump in the chat box there.